Welcome to Module 6, Removing Collections. Now, the objective here is that collection accounts are consumer credit file, and these accounts appear when a creditor either assigns or sells a debt to a third-party collection agency after the account becomes severely delinquent. Typically, after 180 days, they'll charge it off, and then they'll send it to a debt collector. And a collection account can significantly affect your credit file because it indicates that a debt was not repaid according to the original agreement. In this module, what you're going to learn is how to challenge collections accounts using two primary strategies. The first is the debt validation request to the collection agency and the dispute that's submitted to the credit bureaus, right? It's kind of like a two-pronged approach. And these steps are based on consumer rights established under, number one, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and of course, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So the first step in this process is you want to send a debt validation letter to the actual collection company. So before disputing the collection account with the credit bureaus, you should first send a request that the collection agency validate the actual debt. And this right is found under the FDCPA, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Section 1692G, debt validation rights or validation of debts. And under this provision, you as a consumer have the right to request verification of the debt from the third-party debt collector. Now, the purpose of the debt validation letter is to request or require that the collector prove that the debt actually exists, that the amount is accurate, and that the collector has the legal authority, according to the FDCPA, to actually collect on that debt. And many collection agencies purchase debts in bulk, and they may have limited documentation. And this is where we're able to trip up a lot of these debt collectors with the debt validation letter. Right. Of course, there are sample letters that's going to be included in this module that you can use, edit, and send off. So when sending that validation request, you want to ask the collector to provide documentation supporting certain things like the original contract, documentation showing that the consumer originally agreed to the debt with the creditor, and very importantly, the chain of assignment, right, or the chain of custody. And when they get that debt in bulk, a lot of the times that type of documentation is missing, especially the chain of assignment. So these are records showing that the transfer of the debt from the original creditor was actually, appropriate, or they had the right to do so to the current collection agency. And this document should demonstrate that the collector legally obtained the right to actually collect that debt. So proof the collector owns or services the debt. So collectors should demonstrate that they have the authority to collect the debt, which may include debt purchase agreements, assignment documentation, and or authorization from the original creditor. So the collector's responsibility after validation request. So once a consumer requests validation, the collector must cease collection activity until the requested verification is provided. So this is a very important step because once you send that validation letter, they have to cease collecting. Sometimes they have to cease reporting, and this will give you wiggle room to be able to challenge that with the credit bureaus while you're in the process with the actual collection company, where they're not able to really verify the account. And a lot of times this is how we're able to get collections removed very fast. So collection activity may include calls, right? A letter demanding some sort of payment. They call that a dunning letter. And then reporting collection activity to the actual credit bureaus. And if the collector can't provide sufficient documentation, it might not legally have, the right to continue attempting to collect that debt. So step 2 is to dispute the collection account with the actual patient, or if the documentation or account appears incomplete or inaccurate, then you may dispute the collection account with the credit bureaus. And again, this is the factual based dispute method, right? Those major bureaus, of course, we know Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the bureaus are required to investigate any disputed information on any account that you challenge to credit report. So some common dispute arguments for collections. So you may dispute a collection account for several reasons. One is the lack of validation, right? So if the collector fails to provide that documentation that we're requesting, proving that the debt exists and they actually have the authority or legal capacity to collect it, then you may dispute the account based on insufficient verification. Incomplete documentation is another one. So if the documentation provided does not clearly establish that the debt or the collector's authority is official, then the information may be considered incomplete. And a lot of times they'll just send you like a copy of your bill or something that, according to the law, is incomplete. So examples are missing contracts, missing transfer documentation, and missing payment records. Inaccurate balances is another reason that you can dispute the account, right? So when you review your credit report, you want to review whether the balance reported by the collection agency actually matches the documented payment history. So some possible errors that you want to look for in your credit report is things like incorrect balances, duplicate collection reporting accounts, improper fees that may have been added. And if inaccuracies exist, then again, the account may be disputed with the credit bureaus and deleted from your actual credit report. Some common Metro 2 reporting violations when it comes to collection accounts. You got to understand that creditors and collection agencies report account data to a standardized system created by the CDIA or the Consumer Data Industry Association. And this format defines how account information must be structured when transmitted to the major credit bureaus so that they can then place that information on your credit report. When lenders or debt collectors fail to follow Metro 2 standards, this is when the information being reported may be incomplete, inconsistent, or inaccurate. And these inconsistencies can form a basis for your disputes under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which requires those furnishers to report that information accurately. And I'm going to give you guys some of the most common Metro 2 reporting violations found on credit reports. The first one is inaccurate or incorrect data first delinquency, right? The data first delinquency is what determines how long a negative account can remain on a credit report. If this data is reported incorrectly, it can cause accounts to remain on the credit report for longer than allowed, or incorrect delinquency timelines, right? The date must reflect the first missed payment. So the data first delinquency is the date where you first missed that payment, that first 30-day late payment. Then it went 60, 90, 80, 120, 180. That's what led to the account becoming delinquent and never returning to the current status. Typically, if you pay a collection, that date resets. So this is why you don't want to necessarily pay a collection, but you want to challenge it first. Then if we could do a pay for delete or something like that, then we can go that route as well. The second thing is inconsistent account status codes. So Metro 2 requires that account status codes match the actual condition of the account, right? Some common inconsistencies when it comes to that include accounts reported as charged off, but also listed as open and active, an account marked closed by the consumer when the lender actually closed it, and an account marked current while showing severe delinquencies. And these conflicting codes may indicate inaccurate reporting. The third one is incorrect balance reporting. So balances must accurately reflect the amount owed on the account. So some common errors include incorrect remaining balances, balances that increase after the account is closed, incorrect charge-off balances, and failures to update balances after payments have been made. The next one is incorrect payment status. So the payment status field is what indicates whether an account is either current, delinquent, charged off, or in collections. And some common violations are when accounts are reported as maybe 120 days late while also showing current payments, right? An account reported as charged off while continuing to report monthly late payments, or accounts reporting inconsistent delinquency levels. And these inconsistencies create misleading credit histories, leading to people getting denied, right? Low limits. And these are things that harm you and help you when it comes time to file that lawsuit against the credit bureaus for non-compliance. The fifth one is re-aging of delinquent accounts. So re-aging happens when a creditor improperly changes the delinquency date to make a negative account appear newer than it actually is, right? This practice can extend how long the account remains on your credit report. And this is a complete violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And under credit reporting guidelines, the reporting timeline must be based on the original date of delinquency and not when the account was, either transferred or sold to that collection agency. So these are things that you definitely want to check for when auditing, or reviewing your credit report. Then the next one is duplicate account reporting, right? So duplicate reporting occurs when the same debt appears multiple times on your credit report. LVNV Funding, I will say, their collection agency, they do this all the time. When we review credit reports, they're the major one that will see the account being reported in two different places, right? So some examples is both the original creditor and the collection agency will be reporting the same balance incorrectly, right? There'll be multiple collection agencies reporting the same debt simultaneously, or there'll be duplicate trade lines created by reporting errors. That's what happens with LVNV funding, right? And duplicate reporting can artificially inflate the amount of debt actually shown on your credit report, throwing off your DTI, leading again to denials or either lower credit limits. The seventh one is inaccurate account ownership. Accounts must be reported under the correct consumer, right? So some errors with this might be accounts belonging to another person appearing on your credit report, accounts that are assigned to the wrong social security number, or mixed credit files, right? And these issues often occur as a result from inaccurate personal identifier information. This is why you always want to update that personal information first. The next one is incorrect account open or close dates. So Metro 2 requires accurate reporting on key account dates like the date open, the date closed, the date last reported, the date of last activity, and things like that. Some common violations include incorrect account open dates, incorrect closure dates, dates inconsistent with payment histories, like again, the date of last payment, the date of last activity, things like that. And these incorrect dates can affect both credit history length and delinquency timelines. The ninth thing is reporting monthly late payments after a charge off, right? Now, this doesn't have to necessarily do with collections, but in a way it does, right? Because after account is charged off, it's sent to collections, and you want to make sure that charge off dates and the dates that's reported with the collection account are congruent. And if not, this gives you reason to either remove one or the other, right? So once an account has been charged off, the payment status should reflect the charge off status, right? And in some lenders, what they'll do is continue reporting new late payments each month after the charge off happened, which can create inaccurate payment histories. The 10th one is failure to update the account status after either a settlement or a payment. So when an account is either settled or paid, the status must be updated accordingly, right? So some common occurrences with that and violations are when accounts remain reported as unpaid after they've been settled, right? Settled accounts continuing to show full balances, or paid collections remaining marked as active collections. And failure to update these fields can misrepresent, your current obligations. The 11th thing is incorrect creditor classification. So Metro 2 also includes a field for identifying the type of creditor reporting the account, right? And some errors that occur with this is the collection agencies report themselves as an original creditor, or you might see a collection account and it doesn't have the original creditor's name, right? The debt buyers report incorrect account types and incorrect industry classification codes that are being used, right? And these inconsistencies may create confusion regarding the source of the debt. And again, all of these things that we're going over are things that are going to help you structure your dispute letters in a way that's going to get these accounts removed, very fast. The 12th thing is the failure to mark the account as disputed. So when a consumer disputes an account, the furnisher has to update the account to reflect that it is currently being disputed. And sometimes they don't do that. And a failure to do so can violate reporting guidelines if the furnisher has been notified of the dispute. So key takeaways for Metro 2 is, Metro 2 reporting standards. They define how lenders must transmit account information to the credit bureaus. So when creditors fail to follow these guidelines, the resulting credit report data may contain inaccuracies or inconsistencies. And this is what gives us the right to get this stuff off the credit report. So consumers or you should review your credit report, and you want to look for incorrect dates, inconsistent account statuses, inaccurate balances, duplicate reporting, improper delinquency timelines, and any of the other things that we kind of just went over. And identifying these issues can help you determine whether the reported information accurately reflects your credit report. Some key takeaways when it comes to collections: just remember, collection accounts should be carefully examined and challenged when documentation is incomplete or inaccurate. And you want to follow the two-step approach. First, validation letter to the collection company. And even if they kind of come back with something else, we want to send a follow-up letter, letting them know, hey, this isn't enough, right? And in step 2, disputing the collection account with the credit bureaus. And by requesting the validation and carefully reviewing the documentation provided, you can determine whether the collection account is properly supported or whether further dispute action is appropriate. And it goes the same way with the actual credit bureaus.